Hey everyone, welcome to my first podcast episode. My name is Jordan Winter, and today my episode is a pretty personal one. I'm diving into my research question, and it's what challenges do college freshmen face when they feel alone, and how does that isolation impact their mental health? Now, I have titled this episode as Freshman Illusion. Okay, now to explore this on a deeper level, I'll be using online research, observation, and a use of my own story when I was a college freshman. I wasn't able to get any interviews that I hoped for, but what I went through during my freshman year taught me more than I think any interview could have, other than a different perspective. Freshman illusion, okay. Freshman year is supposed to be a highlight reel. That new freedom, that new friends, and new experiences, but what nobody tells you is that freedom hits differently when you're suddenly responsible for everything in your life, but you are alone. Certain research shows that freshmen experience some of the highest levels of loneliness, and I feel like that I can connect with that very deeply. Even when living in dorms full of people, that's exactly where my story fits in. At the start of college, I got involved with a brand new people who I thought were going to be my friends, but they turned out to be the wrong group. Everyone seemed fun, exciting, and carefree, drinking, smoking, and staying up late. All of it felt like the normal college experience. I convinced myself I needed to follow along or fit in. But the truth is, I never wanted any of that. Drinking never felt right, especially knowing what alcohol did to my mom, because she's a huge alcoholic, and I have a rough childhood from that, but the pressure to fit in is very real. And I think that's something a lot of people ignore. And I ignored my gut to make friends because I wanted to. I didn't want to feel alone. And you know how it goes. Now, before my arrest, the first thing that broke me was my relationship at the time. Falling apart, I trusted them and caught a lot of feelings, though this significant other would start fights, would get mad at me for the smallest things, said false things about me at the time. And I decided to believe it for some odd reason. The breakup ignited something within me, and I carried that brokenness into everything that came next in my life, or what was to come, Then I went to Oklahoma. Now, I was up there visiting a friend. We watched the Tech versus OSU game, and someone I met that night wanted to smoke. This is way after the Tech game. We ended up winning like 50, it was a high scoring game, like 56 to something. I can't remember, I can't recall. So we went out looking to, find a device, and I ended up getting pulled over. The officer said it smells like you've been drinking. Now, obviously, throughout the game, me and my friends were, and I didn't brush my teeth or didn't have gum. So obviously my breath smelled like alcohol. Well, he tells me, get out of the vehicle. So I listened, obviously. Now, thankfully, I passed all of the field sobriety tests, but I blew a 0.01. And at the time, I'm 19, you can't have anything in it. Even though it's an error code, you could drink, you could take a shot like NyQuil, and that could show up as alcohol at 0.01. So it kind of sucks. However, there was an open container in the back of my car. It wasn't mine, but it was pinned on me. Before I even processed what was happening, they grabbed my wrists, and I was detained. In a state I didn't live in, no wallet, no car, no family nearby. And the reason why I had no wallet is my wallet was in my car, which got impounded, obviously. I was in jail for about 22 hours, basically almost a full day, just 2 hours before. However, my buddy I met that day, his name's Dalton Dunn, he bailed me out. He was my savior. And he let me stay in his dorm, and he stayed extra days to actually be there with me and help me out while I was struggling. But this moment changed everything in my life. And this is when I started to believe I was bad luck. And like, I'm gonna be honest, this is where my isolation really began in my life. So after getting out of jail, my car was impounded with my wallet inside, as I mentioned before. My hometown friend, who I went up there to actually see, he left with all of my belongings. My lawyer, he kept on pushing my court dates back, so I had to keep driving back and forth from Lubbock to Stillwater, Oklahoma. Money was tight, my family was disappointed. Thankfully, my dad was on my side because he actually heard me out. But during that time in jail, the breakup kept on replaying in my head, and I just kept on saying the bad things that were said about me and believing they were true. And it felt like every single thing was working against me at the time. I had to drive back finally after court was done, and I had to drive to Thanksgiving because this is around the same time this project, is happening. I got a flat tire on the way back home during Thanksgiving. My friends disappearing when I told them not to hang out. Got cussed out by one when I canceled a trip, a spring break, Not even a trip. It was just, I did. I cussed out my friend. Well, no, he cussed me out, not me. He cussed me out because I decided to cancel a trip because it got close to spring break time. I know this is like a crazy jump forward of where we're at. But he told me to kill myself. But there was a lot of people judging me without knowing the full truth. And at some point, I stopped blaming the situation and blamed myself. Felt like I was the problem, like I was the bad luck. Like hanging around me meant things would fall apart, and slowly but surely. This mindset is dangerous. Isolation doesn't always start with being physically alone. It begins when you decide you don't deserve people around you. For 3 months back at school, during the second semester, I barely had anyone. I had a very easy schedule, which made me not want to leave my dorm. I sat and watched all kinds of movies because I didn't want to do anything else. The only person I really talked to was my boy Ryan, and even though we hung out, we were coping in ways that made things worse, like smoking to escape instead of dealing with what we felt. Isolation doesn't shout, it whispers, and those whispers turn into a deep spiral fast. This is my turning point, okay? What finally gave me something to hold on to was getting my dog, Coco, later that semester. I got her as a DoorDash tip because I did that for some side money, but she gave me structure, purpose, responsibility, and most importantly, the company. But even then, I noticed something. People started talking to me again because they found out I had a dog. And that made making friends even harder because they just wanted to see her, which is understandable. However, they still truly did not want to be friends. She made my life significantly better. Near the end of the year, she improved me in many different areas, so I owe it all to her. Although I'm currently in my sophomore year of college, I'm still navigating the journey of making friends. Most people have already formed tight-knit groups, created lasting memories, and shared countless inside jokes, which makes it challenging for someone like me to find a sense of belonging. But Coco reminds me that I'm never truly alone, and I was able to meet someone who makes me feel seen now, more than anyone else could ever could. Now, this is where research comes in. When I looked into this topic, I found some eye-opening information. It says 1 in 3 freshmen experience deep loneliness. Isolation increases the risk of substance use, poor decision-making, and mental health decline. Also, most students think they're the only ones struggling, which causes them to stay silent. So, everything I was going through adds up through my personal experience. And this research just solidified it. It was the things I went through, and I know so many are going through it as well. Now, here are things I learned the hard way. Saying no won't lose you real friends, only fake ones. You do not need to destroy yourself to fit in with others. 3, feeling alone doesn't mean that you're the problem. 4, isolation lies. It convinces you that you're the problem when you're not. 5, healing isn't instant. Things like that takes time. And it takes people who genuinely care for you. Now, these are just my closing thoughts. Freshman year broke me in ways I did not expect. However, talking about it made me realize I wasn't weak. I was human, and every student feeling alone right now is human as well. If this episode helps even one person feel less invisible, then sharing my story is worth it. You could go through so many things in your life, and you could always question it. And that's the hardest thing to actually get by. It's like, why am I doing this? What's this for? What's the reason? So you need to learn to be able to, deal with things yourself, but also be able to have those close ones that do genuinely care for you and hold them close. Keep them close. Because those people are really going to show you who you need in this world and who you need to become for others. And so it's hard. Life's hard. And if you go through some of the things I've gone through, it just takes time to get past it. And I know everyone is going through something, but they just don't want to say it because they want to keep it to themselves, which is understandable. Very understandable. But I want to thank you all for listening. Please take care of yourself. And remember, when you feel alone, you are not the only one. And there is always going to be God on your side. He will be with you every step of the way. My favorite saying is, it's His path you are living. So just keep in mind that you will be able to do great things. Stay focused, stay locked in, and you're good. You will be okay. Thank you.